listening the earlier presentations. My name is Teresa Varela. I'm from Portugal, and I'm presenting here the study from 2 successive years for my doctoral thesis. And this study was based on social cultural theories of creativity, citizenship, and educational contexts, in particular art education. And it also refers to intergovernmental education policy guidelines that highlighted the development of creativity as one of the essential learning skills. It also reflects on the transformation in art education practices over the last few decades, understood as processes of social and cultural activity, and the impact of activities on the construction of learning and pedagogical practices from the perspective and voice students of the voices structures of the students. So my presentation calls synergies between creative strategies and participatory behaviors in workplace training. Thank you so much. You can click it because I've already done the first presentation, and you can pass all over. So the study objective was the aim. You can click, please. The aim is to analyze and understand the articulation between creative processes and citizenship practices in the context of the art education, and took place in the artistic practices developed in the project and technologies discipline at Antonio Arroyo Art School. So the main question, the next slide, is what is the contribution of the interconnections between creative processes and citizenship practices to learning in artistic practices in training and working contexts at Antonio Arroyo Artistic School? And next slide. So the specific objectives were characterize the contributions and interconnections of the processes to stimulate creativity and citizenship practices within the scope of projects in a training working context. In the learning processes of project and technology discipline practices in this context, so identify pedagogical actions and interventions that improve learning and the development of creativity of social values in this context. To propose other approaches in artistic teaching practices which allow other possibilities for reflection and understanding about these interconnections to develop the educational strategies on learning and skills development in plastic and artistic production in the educational context. So the theoretical framework that underpins the research questions are the objectives presented based on literature review of the themes that interconnects these studies, creativity, citizenship, and workplace training. So for the creativity processes, authors who defend creative practice as a construction of creativity, and also the creativity systemic by perspective from Glăveanu, the 5A model that includes actor, creative action, artifact, the influence of audience and affordances. Also to believe that creativity learning develops from 2 interdependent dimensions, interpsychological and interpsychological, and the creative process that the elements that influence creativity are linked to well-being and collaborative creativity by Burnard Dragovic. Also the idea from Klimenko that development of students' creative capacities based on 3-dimensional cognitive, metacognitive, affective, motivational, and instrumental. Very important to reflect on teaching practices to develop students' creativity potential using the scale of teaching practices for creativity from Alakare Flight, and also the NACE, the report all of futures creativity, culture, and education that presents a vision that creativity is possible in all areas of human activity and everyone has creative capacities. So for the citizenship practices, it's important the idea that citizenship should realize through social and cultural interactions where individuals establish links and associations implying involvement and participations in their actions. So authors who argue for a multidimensional vision of citizenship and the arts, authors who argue in favor of the possibilities of artistic training combined with the development of social and cultural relations between individuals, and that valuing autonomous, dialogical, and relational pedagogies, valuing participation, commitment, and personal and social responsibility. So dynamics for listening, reflection, and dialogue to develop communicative democracy, which emphasize conversation, and carrying out educational experience that promote attention to others and relationships of collaboration, solidarity, and mutual recognition. without forgetting the intergovernmental guidelines, namely the conceptualizations with the framework of the dimensions for the global citizenship education and the education for sustainable development. So also the importance of external partnerships, that we believe that integration of real experience promotes reflection and establishes a relationship of greater communication between the school community and the local community. Authors who believe that partnerships promotes the linking of educational communities with their social contexts to produce collective works, and also to create partnerships that involves work behind the classroom, both open and closed learning opportunities, valuing collective work and the involvement of the wider community. So in the background is that human mediations in artistic education generates possibilities for the development of creative potential and citizenship practices. In the next slide, we show the context for the empirical component for the research methodology. So this study was made in Antonio Arroyo Artistic School, a secondary school. 2 artistic production courses were studied: plastic realization of spectacle, it's like set design, and ceramics. So the project and the technologies disciplines, they were included. It involves 120 hours per year in training in work context. So the 12th grade year was where we study 1 class each academic year, and all the participants involved were 17 students and 5 teachers. For this research methodology, so we chose action research methods that establish a dialogue between theory and practice, with a qualitative, interpretative, and critical approach. It's self-reflective and critical. It's a process of reflecting on practices, changing own reading of the world in which one is inserted, and which influences all those participated in it. The 2 research modalities chosen in the first year, emancipatory and critical, and the second, practical modality. So the aim is to understand, to reflect, to act, and change in the relational dynamics of learning involving creative processes and citizenship practices. So the next slide, I can show you the data collection techniques and instruments that were very diversified. So observation, interviews, class questions, portfolios, photographs, and official documents. In the base of those techniques are action observation, conversation, and documents analysis for subsequent triangulation of the information obtained. So the practice were developed using a project-based methodology as part of work-based training. Data collection is linked to the planning of activities of each class in the respective school year. The activities involve collective work and external partnership with artists and other institutions. So the next projects, I don't know if you can click on the video, it's below. If you can click on the video, a video. I can show some photographs from the first year: communication of ideas, diversity and different points of view, experimentation, exploration, and creation on 3-dimensional objects. So participation on leader in learning. So students as co-authors from the processes learning with artists and environment with freedom and flexibility, collaboration between peers in building and creating with others, commitment, personal and social responsibility in actions. In the second slide, I can show you the second year of the study. So they highlighted the sharing and discussing ideas collectively with teachers and colleagues, involvement and participation in learning, collective dialogues and for reflection and decision-making, building and creating with others, valuing group work, so experimentation and exploration of materials and techniques, and also study visits, participation in the Santo Elois Fair, where the students sold the artistic ceramic production. So the next slide I can show you before, the one before, thank you. So for data analysis, we subdivided in 2 parts. So contributions and development of creativity, contributions and development of citizenship, and contributions of pedagogical actions and interventions. If you click on if you click to go on, thank you so much. This is the first part of the data analysis. And the second part, if you click again, it's going to show the contribution and the connections between creative processes and citizenship practices. So the next slide, we present here the first table that presents the students' contributions associated with creativity. So they consider to be complex and subjective with dynamic, changing and evolving character. They consider creativity as something intrinsic to their personality, but it's not limited to that. So therefore, it transforms, develops, and evolves. It results from the combination of external and internal factors. It generates creation of something new, unique, different. They also associate it with the problem solving and consider that it exists anywhere and any area of knowledge. Others see it as a form of expression. Some say it's a necessity, and others say it can't come out of nowhere and mention the importance of others. So from the NVivo program stands out 4 elements that helps to develop of creativity. If you click on the right side, there's a video also. Yeah, thank you. So the agents who influence creative processes based on the 5A models from Glăveanu, they identified methods and techniques like brainstorm, but the most highlighted was Wallace four-stage method: preparation, incubation, illumination, verification. For creativity capabilities, also they recognized the Klimenko's idea from the consider essential to develop creativity thinking in action, that cognitive and metacognitive, effective, motivational, and instrumental. And for most important, the creativity development factors, they consider interpersonal factors. So to be autonomous, being yourself, calm, having time to do the tasks. And also the interpersonal factors that they highlight was interaction and communication with the others. If you pass the next slide, for the contributions and development of citizenship, I can show you the table for the students' interpretations of citizenship and associated terms. It's the earlier slide, please. Thank you. So the first in table, we see here that the students define, they define this concept to define very difficult to define, created by us, that it involves personal and social identity with rights and responsibilities before societies. Most of the students value respect for others and others people's space, solidarity, mutual help, and tolerance, knowing how to be and to live together in society, as well as being open to difference and diversity, also to belong in a community, common well-being, and being an active person in society. So in the table of the elements to analyze the development of citizenship, the most 3 elements were highlighted were the citizenship practices identification, correlated to dynamics and dialogue and relationships, respect for each other's differences and singularities, the right to freedom of expression. And the citizenship education dimensions, they recognize the coexistence of various perspectives, cognitive skills, social emotional skills, procedural skills that are related to intergovernmental guidelines. And for the important factors to develop them are the contact with others, knowing how to work with others in a group, a sense of commitment, communication between everyone, learning by doing, receiving visual stimuli, having time, and their own involvement with partnerships to open up possibilities for new contacts and interests and realities. For the next slide, contributions from pedagogical actions and research, they highlighted the teaching strategies diversified, the personal attributes to teaching practices, empathy, sensibility, climate for expression of ideas, where an atmosphere they can have confidence to share their ideas, encourage them to having new ideas. So the most important was student learning interest, and an aspect of traditional teaching procedures that is considered corresponding to educational orientation that is limited to the transmission and memorization of the knowledge, they didn't saw it, the activities like that. So it's very grateful to make and share this experience to you. So the bottom line, in the next slide, we can see it, that the analysis to contributions and interconnections between creative processes and citizenship practices, the elements for each other, the elements for developing creativity, the elements for developing citizenship and pedagogical actions and practice, they all have an interdependent relational dynamics. And what stands out was the collaborative dynamics in learning processes. So the table that I show you in the collaborative dynamics in learning and constitute relational elements from NVivo was that collaborative dynamics underlined by relational dynamics with the physical and material environment that involves ambience and learning spaces with possibilities of access to material resources to carry out work, with flexibility and freedom of movement in learning spaces, also intercommunications between the school courses. And most important, in interpersonal and interpersonal relational dynamics stands out four underpinned relationships, most highlighted student-actor, then student-student, working between peers, student-teacher, and also the relation between the student and the training in work context partners. So to finish and to tell you about the conclusions that we found out was a construction of knowledge, self-expression, valorization, and the right to communicate and express oneself as an individual. Also, the artistic education as a fundamental socialization space for the integral development of the individual. Art education practices are fundamental to creating personal and transpersonal structures, learning knowledge, attitudes, and actions that help prepare students to deal with the challenges and situations that constantly emerge in the world around them in increasingly complex societies. So creative practices and citizenship practice are interdependent. Students highlighted the relational dynamics existing during their learning, experiencing creativity as an experience, and citizenship through practice as actors in creative actions and citizenship practices. So collaborative creativity emerges from human interactions and mediations. Interpersonal and interpersonal relationships were the driving force behind learning. And very important also, action research methodology is inherent in development processes of creativity and citizenship practices, because this methodology is a practice for changing practices, which establish a dialectic between theory and practice in a cyclical dynamic of action, reflection, new action. And that was both observed in the reflection on pedagogical practices and also identified as the one that the students use to produce knowledge in successive actions of observation, action, reflection, deliberation, and new action in the construction of expansion of their knowledge network. So you can pass the next slide. I'm almost finished. And the next one. So thank you so much for listening.